Hello, everyone. Welcome to this second day of our hackathon we are organizing this year. And I welcome everyone that's coming. Thank you for tuning in. Before we start with talks, let me just lose a few words about what we're going to do today and some other stuff. So for that, let me share my screen here. Well, first, about the lineup, we have Tim Benniks talking about modern commerce. And after that, we have Sybren Willemot. He's talking about his open source contributing story. So that it will be fun. And but before we start with this, just let me lose a few words about the current situation. So we are, if you go to the Vue Storefront website and the blog, you find a blog post that says we are back hackathon and new prices, dates, and donations for Ukraine. So of course, this is horrible what's happening in Ukraine, and as Vue Storefront, we want to do the part that we can and help any way we can. So we send out a special prize if we find someone that does a project in this hackathon that helps the people somehow in the Ukraine. You can be as creative as you want. The price for that will be $500. So which takes the total pool price up to $2,000. And also here on this website, you can find this information that in the beginning it was going to be 1 week. Now we extended it to 2 weeks, so you have enough time to work on the project, especially on projects that have to do with helping in the situation in Ukraine. You can also find information here how you can help those people that are now in need of our help. A bunch of resources where you can donate money and so on. So check it out. And if you want to donate something there, don't go through any third party, just go directly there. And I really hope all of this will end soon. All right. So let me take this away. All right. So we are coming now to our first speaker. It's Tim Benniks. Hold on 1 second. Yes, Tim is based in France. He's a developer advocate at Uniform there. He is the former director of web development at Valtech, and he's a Cloudinary media developer expert and a Nuxt ambassador. And today he is going to talk about modern commerce and how the Jamstack will change the world. Let's see. Give it up for Tim.
Hello, everyone. In this talk, I want to discuss how the Jamstack will disrupt the status quo that is traditional commerce. But before I dive in, let's talk a bit about me and why I feel like I can actually talk about this stuff. So my name is Tim Benniks, and you can find me on Twitter here or here, depending on how I edit this. And I work at Uniform, where I'm a principal developer advocate. A little bit more about Uniform you'll get to see a bit later in this talk. I'm also working in our community, so I'm a developer expert or media developer expert at Cloudinary. I'm an ambassador at Nuxt, and I also am a technical council member of the Mac Alliance. And with all that combined, I also love making videos. And so if you feel like that this talk is giving you some cool vibes or you like what you see, feel free to actually subscribe. No need, of course. It's just giving myself a little plug here. Anyways, so let's go talk about the why. So before I worked at this startup, I worked at agency. So I've had a pretty long career. I'm kind of a dinosaur in our industry, where I worked with lots of big brands that all have e-commerce, and they're all dealing with their digital experience, their campaigns, how to get people to buy, but how to be smart about what products to show people. And let's be honest, they're all struggling because they're all dealing with traditional commerce systems that are very expensive and very kind of monolithical and heavy. And they have these systems because they're the ones that are able to deal with scale. But they're starting to drag them down, and we're seeing a big change in the industry at the moment. And I kind of want to talk about how I helped some of these brands actually get there. But also, now that I don't work at these agencies anymore, what they should do to be more agile and to save a lot of cash, time, and effort to do the good things that e-commercers want to do. And so let's talk about sandwiches. And I know that sounds weird, right? But this is traditional commerce. This is a pre-made burger at a restaurant that a chef chose to make for you. So the chef chose, on this burger, there will be this, and this, and I combine it in that way, and most people will like it. And so that's the same as software for traditional commerce. It's one big bucket with a lot of things in it that together combine everything you need to start selling. But the moment you want to go slightly outside of that and do something else, like you want more cheese or you don't need the meat, you're going to have to go to this chef and tell her or him, hey, can you change this? And they'll be like, nah, not really. I'm planning to do different things later on. And if the burger makes you sick, you can actually point the finger and say, hey, I had a contract with you. I paid you for this burger. So think about how that fits in traditional commerce with these big systems. They're exactly like that. If the chef decides to change what type of meat is on the burger, you kind of have to, if you always buy that one, you're going to have to deal with that, even if you don't want to, or you're going to do something custom. So you might bring some meat from home and put it on. Like it's kind of complicated, right? And so modern commerce is much more like this, where it's completely deconstructed. You choose what you want on your burger. And so that also means you better be a good chef, because not everything goes well together. Not everything scales well enough. And so having all these different systems working together and you choose how to combine them, that's where the new things are coming in. And so let's talk a bit more about that. And so first, here's a little bit of history, right? So we used to have the suite approach, where everything is chained together in one big chunk. And then a couple of years ago, you saw more and more systems. They're like, okay, I will keep your big system, but I'm going to extract my front end and maybe my hosting, because I want to put it on AWS or something, because I need more flexibility away from your product to do my own thing. And this is quite challenging, because this is effectively the same thing as going to that restaurant, deconstructing your burger, putting your own stuff on it. And yeah, that's not so easy, but it's doable. We've done this for a long, long time. And so more recently, you see that more and more is going out of that sweet box. And commerce is now also a lot like commerce engines are standalone nowadays. CMSs are becoming standalone. And so where does the Jamstack fit in all this? Well, nowadays, there is no more origin, right? Because when you had the suite, there was one central server that knew everything about all the systems. Nowadays, you have all these different systems. Let's say you have commerce tools or big commerce, and then you have Contentful as a CMS, and you have Cloudinary for images, and you have Bluestone for a PIM, and you have Vercel to host. Like there's all these different things, but nothing is in the center telling you what to do. And actually, Jamstack fits really well in that system, right? Because everything is now happening on the CDN. The CDN edge is the magic. And Jamstack is front and center, because Jamstack sites are static sites. They're statically generated. All the work happens on build, and then it's just a bunch of static files, like an old school website that you put on the CDN, and you can scale it to infinity. And it doesn't know about a central system anymore, because it's distributed everywhere. And so nowadays, everything is API first, right? And there is no architecture blueprint anymore for what is a good commerce, because all businesses nowadays, they know exactly what they need. Do I need a PIM system, or am I fine just putting it in my commerce engine? You know, why not choose different things that are good for you? Maybe you want to invest a lot in a wish listing system and a lot less in your, I don't know, media outlets, whatever. You choose what you want, right? And so there's no blueprint to select the right things. And because there's no blueprint, because that's a feature of the modern composable architectures, new product categories are starting to emerge. Because as it turns out, it's not so easy to make your own burger and make sure that your whole company loves the choices you made for everything that's in that burger. And is there enough cheese or not enough cheese? And what happens when the cheese is out of stock? What do you do if there's Black Friday and you need a lot of cheese, right? So it's not that easy. And so these new product categories, they're starting to come up with products that help you from a cable management mess, as you can see here, to, where you connect all the different headless systems together and hope and pray that it works, to something like this, right? Because what you want is a cable management system where you look at it and you're able to, plug and play and be sure that you know where every cable is going. And so back in the day, I'm talking 2 years, that's a long time in internet world, right? I worked on this website and I was in charge of delivering it technically. That doesn't mean I build everything. We actually were able to hire like 20 people, like super talented people, to build this thing on the front end from scratch. And we did a really nice transition from the old to the new. And this thing has been built to perfection. It's properly cable managed. This is a very impressive system. But it took us 6 months to get only one component on the page. 6 months of a lot of people figuring out what is the best way to cable manage this thing so it's good for the future. And so we're really proud of that. And we said that to the client and to the agencies and telling everybody, this is how you do it. But at what cost? If you have 6 months of 20 people working on a simple thing that's something you expect to be simple, right? It's very expensive. And luckily this brand had the cash to do that. And now they have huge benefits from that. But we need to normalize how this works. It's very important that everybody gets kind of this easy system to make their own burger, right? And so basically, in these new systems, there's no more center of the universe. And all the things, like you can see this moving here in the graph, is like you can have different frameworks for the front end. You can have different headless commerce. You can have different analytics, and you should be able to plug and play, and it should be orchestrated by some form of a platform that doesn't interfere. And so that platform has to be not opinionated. It should not tell you how to connect it or what technical languages you should use. It shouldn't tell you use React or use PHP or do some sort of mix of things. It should definitely not give you a vendor lock-in, right? A platform should not prescribe to the end users, either being technical people or content editors or marketers, what to use, because in a year it will be out of date. And that's just sad, because then you have to re-platform after 2 years for another $1 million. And that's just not necessary if you do it the right way, right? So you should also have no roadmap constraints in a platform like this, because if it has no opinion on how you put everything in place, its roadmap should not influence you too much. There shouldn't be that much of a roadmap. It should just be easier to get to use it. And so it prescribes total freedom for everybody, from developer to marketer. And of course, it needs to have a powerful SDK on the technical side on the front end to actually be able to deal with all that. So what that could look like, for example, is you want to be composing your pages with multiple entries from different systems. Because the problem that we see all the time, and I saw that in my career as well, like almost every day, is you delivered version 1, the MVP of your website. And then the marketer gives you a call and says, hey, can you just make me a landing page where you put 5 products, a bit of content, and personalize it based on the context of the user? And then you as a developer, you're like, nope, I don't have time for that. I'm mid-sprint. Don't talk to me. And so frustration arises from that content editor, but also the developer, because did they build some software that's not flexible enough? And then the content editor is like, yeah, but I wanted to make that page because my campaign goes live next month. And so we kind of need to solve that. And so if you look at this here, you would have different instances of different systems going into making compositions right now you can see I'm switching through like different commerce systems, different CMSs, and then you have your own choice of framework or front end. In this case, you can see that it's Nuxt. You have an instant preview on your live site of what the user is doing, and then you just deploy it to your CDN. And you can actually get a little bit more creative. What if you have global content coming from Contentful about terms and conditions, about legal rules, but there's a whole bunch of campaign-related stuff coming from Prismic? Why not add 2 CMSs here? Or why not add 2 commerce engines? Why not? You might want to use the cart stuff from Commerce Tools because it's super decent. And you might want to do the rest with BigCommerce. Why not? You should have the choice, right? And so that sounds all really quite magical. However, I am happy to tell you that we at Uniform have actually built something like this, and I kind of want to show you. This is the dashboard of Uniform, and in here, I'm able to compose pages or compositions that don't have to be pages per se with different headless sources. And you can see my active integrations are currently Commerce Tools and BigCommerce. And so if you go to Canvas, you can actually create compositions. So how about we build a homepage? And so what I want to do in this demo is rebuild the Apple homepage and 2 of its product pages. And I chose Apple because why not? It's a really famous e-commerce and we can play around with it a little. And so what I want to do is have 2 heroes, one for MacBooks, one for iPhones, and then a couple of products below it. So that is content from a CMS and products from BigCommerce. And so because this is a page, let's add a slug. And in this page is now an empty canvas, right? And so we have a content slot in which we can inject some components. I've already pre-configured some components that are pointing to our headless systems. So let's start by adding a tile and select the big variant. And then let's do MacBook Pro. And let's have it linked to MacBook. The interesting bit here is that I selected variant and the URL in here. Because my MacBook Pro tile inside Contentful doesn't need to know where it links. It's just a standalone piece of content. And so using a system like this, it helps you to kind of separate the layouting data, like it's a big variant or a small one, and the real data which lives in the CMS. And so we have this guy. And how about now we also add a big tile for an iPhone? Let's go Pro, right? Yeah, we're Pro. And let's go to iPhone. Okay, let's have a look. So I just hit save. Did I fill out everything? I think I did. Let's preview what we just created. Currently, preview is set up to go to my local host. And this header here is fake because this is a demo. So I basically just made the MacBook Pro page, or hero, sorry, and an iPhone 13. And so that was pretty fast. That was pretty easy. And I chose not to show too much code in this talk. However, the components that this is using, they don't know anything about the fact that it comes from Contentful. That is all dealt with in the SDK from Uniform. So when you have a look at the source that comes out of this, it's actually, this is my homepage, you see, with a slug for slash. And inside the content slot, we have an item that is a Contentful entry. And there has an ID to Contentful in here. And the same goes for the next one, which is actually the iPhone that also has an ID. So you see, we're not storing the data here. What we're doing is we're pointing to the system. And in the SDK in the front end, you will query the system with help of our out-of-the-box tools. And then you build whatever you need, because that data is then mapped to your components the way that you want, which means if you're doing it in Jamstack, it's not really a big problem because you can do a couple of calls on build and then generate a site. And so you could, if you wanted to, for each component, do 5 calls and it's still not really a big deal. Basically, now we created 2 systems and they're both from Contentful. So for now, that looks a little bit boring, right? What you could do, like I could show you, like if you wanted to edit it, this would be the flow. So you click on edit, it goes to Contentful. You change it up here, you hit publish, and you go back here. If I wanted to make a new one, you could also do that from here. So the flow is you edit here, you compose. The content editing actually happens in the other system. That's not happening in here. Okay, now how about we add some products? Well, let's make a product list. So this is yet another component, and you can see this is connected to BigCommerce now. And so let's look at some Apple products that I just added. And so what I want is now let's just add some random things from Apple here. Okay, let's accept and let's save and let's have a look what this just did. So we have our MacBook, we have our iPhone, and there are our 3 products. And so now we have composed a page with a combination of content from a CMS and products from an e-commerce engine. And the front end doesn't really care. It just gets data and renders it. And so if I wanted to change it up, I could, right? I would just do this. And now let's preview that again. And now it's changed, right? So these things aren't super complicated to do as a content editor. The interesting bit here is now that you have this, other things start to become possible. And so let's dive back to the slide so I can explain about these things, and then I'll show you a little demo again. So the one thing we haven't seen is actually personalization. And if you look back in the slides, that grid with all those brands I used to work for, they all without exception needed personalization, because personalization gives you this really nice connection with your user. And to kind of illustrate how personalization should work and then compare it to how it actually is done nowadays, let me show you something from a really cool film. So basically, to create that connection between your user and your website, this is how you kind of do it, right? So basically you have 2 dudes who haven't seen each other for a while. They greet each other in their own way. And then they share banter and reinforce their relationship. And then they take action and engage. And so most websites don't do that. They just do this. Let's buy now. And so basically, e-commerces that do this the right way, where they have a really nice connection and do this personal connection and make it personalized, they have actually 19% higher conversion rates. 19%. That is a ridiculous number. And so why don't I jump back into the demo where we're just starting and show you how you can really easily personalize everything. So we're back in the browser, and I just realized for the previous demo, I didn't have my hat on, but through movie magic, it's back on. So let's add some personalization, and let's generally do that for the products, because imagine I now go to the iPhone page and I'm pretty interested in iPhones, right? Why, if I go back to the homepage, does it still show me the Apple credit card rather than maybe some really nice stuff about things that work well with the iPhone so you can sell me more, right? Why not do that? So what I've done in our system is we do personalization based on the intent of the user. So you go to a page like the iPhone, we are going to assume that your intent on the Apple website is to browse stuff about iPhones and potentially buy one. And so this is not a personalization talk, so I won't go in it too deep. But what you can do now is here you can click personalize this. And so this would be the list for if you're doing no personalization at all. And so let's just call this now product personalization. And so what we want to do is actually add another product list specifically for iPhones. So let's find something. And so for the iPhone, we want to show some accessories, right? Let's say, what do we have? Yeah, here AirTag and MagSafe. That fits. Let's accept and then select that this is the phone intent. And so now let's add another product list where we basically just want to say, okay, if you go to the MacBook page, you want to have some accessories for MacBooks, right? And so here we have the USB-C adapter, we have a MagSafe cable, and I think I had more. Did I? Yes. Oh, AirPods Max probably fit your new fancy MacBook, right? So let's add this as well. And then let's make that a laptop. And so let's save. And so what I've done now is there's already a little bit of code in my demo that tracks the user based on what they're doing. All right, let's preview what we've just done. So now it's not personalized because we haven't actually done any action. So this is still the watch, the home, put in a cart. But let's just go to the MacBook page, right? And this is the MacBook page. So I'm browsing around. I love it. And I go back home and imagine I'm actually really interested in these MacBooks. Now, when I scroll down, suddenly there's like these different accessories, that fit MacBooks, right? But what happens if I'm actually more interested in an iPhone? And let's say I clicked on a link, let's say on Facebook, about the new iPhone. What you could do is actually have a UTM type query parameter for phones. And let's say I click on that. And now this homepage refreshed, but because of this URL, because the user has the intent to look at phones, when I scroll down now, there's actually phone accessories here. And so that were two different ways to kind of build up score against an intent. Like in this case, the URL gave quite a lot of strength against an intent, because we know when you actively click on a link, you want to know something about it, right? And when you just go to a page, the scoring is slightly less strong because you might just be browsing around. So when you go to a page, the score gets stronger. And so based on that score, we know what to show. And we have a little system here for debugging, and you can see that for the phone the score is 75 because I have the URL, and for the laptop is 50 because I just went to the page. And you can kind of see when I click reset scores that it goes back to default. When I can just go to laptop, I go to this. And the interesting bit here is this is all in the Jamstack. It happens on the client, and that's why it's so super fast. When I click, you see here, this is basically just instant. And that's what makes this super interesting, because the personalization is so fast that you don't notice. It doesn't have to go to an origin. So anyways, that's what I wanted to show today. If you're interested in more about how the coding aspect works of all this stuff here, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to show you the code one-on-one. And have a lovely conference. Thank you for watching. Cheers.
All right. Thank you, Tim. We also have Tim here
Hello.
for a Q&A. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm all good. How about you?
I'm great. Thank you. So yeah, that was an interesting presentation, especially the intent thing. That's how they get you, right?
That's how they get you. And it's quite interesting because this approach of personalization is quite different than you would normally see, because we don't actually care about your persona, your segment, or stuff like that. We kind of just follow what you do, and based on that, we figure out what your goal is and personalize that way. And it makes it a bunch easier.
Yeah, well, that's nice. All right, let me see. If anyone that's watching this has a question, just post them on YouTube and I will bring it straight to Tim. I see some people are there. Diogo Duarte, Patrick Montero, Sybren. Aether is there. Hey, Aether. All right. While we wait for some questions, I have some questions. So what would you say is the most challenging thing nowadays building a website as a developer? So there are some things that are better, but also some things that might be more challenging. What, according to you, is something that's more challenging?
Oh, wow. So many things, dude. I think if you're looking at developers and one step more abstract, that's where the real challenges begin. Because we all love to use Nuxt and go full force with it and use some Vue Storefront, for example. And we're quite solid in that area now. People start to learn how these things work. But actually, when you go abstract one step higher and you look a little bit at basically what I was talking about today, is how do you compose the different things together that make up your website before it's actually on the server and serving as a website. That's where it gets really hard, right? Because the moment you start scaling everything up, the way you've connected things start to really be complicated. So, for example, how are you going to do you have commerce that's headless, you have CMS that's headless, and maybe you have an image management system like Cloudinary. How do you connect these things up? And how do you maybe make sure that works across multiple languages or multiple sites? And maybe you have even multiple CMSs, because you see all the time, you could have contentful global instance for all your legal copy, and then local stuff for other things like your campaign or something. And you can make easy decisions to have something on the screen next week. But then when you scale up and you look at it in a year, you're kind of worried about, oh crap, how did I connect this to that and that to that? But then this middle thing needs to go, but then the rest breaks. Right? And you see that more and more, and everybody wants to have like the headless things and the composable stuff. And you're actually creating a headless monolith now. But that's not a monolith you can point a finger to and saying, hey, WordPress, you did that wrong, or hey, Magento, or whatever. Now you have to just say, hey, to yourself, I connected that up wrong. And now you have to solve it, right? And when you do small sites, we're good. But the moment you scale it up, you start to feel the pain, right? And so I think right now, that's one of the biggest challenges for all these companies and all these developers that want to do this modern stuff, but then actually dig their own graves with how complex it can become, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so I think when you create something and it works, it's fine. But if you don't predict what you might need and you don't build it into scale, you run into a wall later. So you have a lot of initial investment in the beginning where it's like just a small site that sells some things, but later on the scaling is easier and faster and less messy, I suppose.
Yeah, like a concrete example of this is actually, I see this quite often, is let's say on your homepage, you might have one product that's featured and then 2 or 3 that are not featured, right? Because this month it's important. And then what you see in your headless CMS, for example, where you put those products in, you add like a little checkbox, right, in the data model that says, now this one is important or it's featured or something. And what you're doing there is you're actually polluting the real data of that product or of that CMS entry with compositional data of that context, of that component on that page. Now it has to be big. And then so when you're a year in and all these data models have been polluted with multiple checkboxes and drop downs and whatever, you're like, yeah, but I have a whole different front end now. Why do I have all these weird checkboxes? And you see this over and over. And that's why I actually work at Uniform, where we hopefully help with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I do work at Vue Storefront, and I still see it as super challenging, the whole thing. So we always say it doesn't make that much sense to use Vue Storefront for something very small because it's an overkill.
Yeah,
but
totally.
when you intend to scale or to grow until like very big, then yeah, it totally makes sense. And Sybren is asking a question about exactly this. How is it possible to have an idea how your choices will look like in a year? Just experience, or is there something
that's
different?
interesting. You don't. We don't even know in 4 weeks what front end will throw at us, right? So the thing you should do is you have to practice separation of concerns. And you don't create one system that is then hard-coded or tightly coupled to other systems, right? All have that, like make something with equal parts. So in my opinion, don't integrate Cloudinary into commerce tools or something like that, right? Because maybe you want to switch out commerce tools and then Cloudinary's connection, what happens there? Or things like that. And so in my opinion, these integration fields into all these different systems, that shouldn't exist. You kind of should have them all plug into one thing. And if you want to switch it out, do it there, because then you have less issues. And so if you deal with that separation of concerns, that would work for any sort of presentation or front-end thing, even if it's an app or not. Like I saw someone asking about an app. And
yeah,
that should be
Victor
the same.
asked, I can show it here. Do you think the same strategy applies to mobile apps? As I think he referred to the intent thing that you showed in the website.
I would say apps is just another endpoint, and an app is just a front end to something, just like a website is a front end to something. And so they should do similar things. And of course, apps have more specialized approaches to things. Maybe it's easier to use, but it's still a front end of some sort, right? So I think it applies to all of it.
All right. Okay, so we are already a little bit over time, but
yes,
I think it's not a problem because our next speaker, Sybren, is also in the comments.
So Sebrin is ready to rock. I think
he's really ready to rock.
For his talk.
Before I let you go, show me your. We dress the same. We had the same talk today. Have the same T-shirt.
Yeah.
Awesome. Your storefront. Okay, cool. So thank you, Tim, for your talk and also for the answers to our questions. And I will see you around later.
Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Let me take this away. Okay, cool. So yeah, that was Tim Benniks. Our next speaker is Sybren Willemot. He is he's based in Belgium and he's a front-end developer there at Euricom. He's also the co-organizer of Bellevue. It's the Vue.js chapter in Belgium, and he's also the Chakra. He's also core team member in Chakra UI. So yeah, he is going to talk about his story or his tale about contributing to open source and what it did for him. So let's give it up in the chat for Sybren.
Hi everyone, I'm Sybren, and a few months ago in October 2021 I had the opportunity to go to Dubai and meet with the other Chakra UI core members. This was such a great experience, meeting these awesome people in real life at a great location. But the most unbelievable part about it was that it was made possible while working on an open source project. In this session, I will be talking about my personal story that started with using Chakra UI Vue, then a small merge request, to a blog post, to getting invited to the core team. So let's go through my story and notice that it wasn't that scary and how it helped me learn a lot of new things like Vue.js 3, TypeScript or writing docs, and how it's helped me to meet amazing people. I also realized that there are many more ways to contribute to open source software than just adding code to the project. Let's get inspired to start with an open source contributing at any level, because it doesn't require geniuses, it requires passionate people. Great, let's start with introducing myself properly. I'm Sebrin Willamot, front-end developer from Belgium. And currently I'm working for a software consultancy company called Euricom. I'm also a core member of Chakra UI Vue, if you haven't noticed yet. And I'm also a core organizer of Bellevue, which is a Vue-related meetup group in Belgium. Let's go back a few years when I was still in school. There I learned about Git and GitHub. And during my studies I had to make a couple of projects. And I was really happy there was such a thing as open source software. Because at that time I saw it as code that I just could steal and add to my own project, so it worked. And in school I also learned how to use Wikipedia and how to find the definition like the following on the screen about open source software. Nowadays I am a core member of the Chakra UI Vue team. And yeah, what is Chakra UI now? Because I've said it a lot and I will be saying it many more times during this talk. Well, it is an open source component library that focuses on building accessible applications with speed. I'm part of the Vue team, but there is also a React version of Chakra UI. And with the Vue team, we are currently building our Vue 1 version that is compatible with Vue 3. And if you're interested in that, I would suggest checking out the talk from Jonathan. My open source journey started in 2020 when I was part of the Worldview meetup team. In July we had our first meetup and Jonathan, who is the creator of Chakra UI Vue, gave a super awesome talk and I just had to try Chakra UI Vue. As you can see, somehow one thing rolled into another thing. Like, I took the chance to join the Worldview team and somehow it got me trying out Chakra UI Vue. Yay! So this is in August of 2020 and I finished my first small test project with Chakra UI Vue. I was super proud and I had to tweet about it, of course. So this is what it looked like. It's not much, it's a very simple login form that I created with Chakra UI and 4 lines of CSS. Now that I know a little bit more about Chakra UI, I do think I can do it with 0 lines of CSS and using the style props. Normally I don't really get comments under my tweets because I'm not a rock star, but I managed to get this one amazing comment. It was from Jonathan, creator of Chakra UI Vue. And yeah, in all excitement, I do remember telling my friend Wim about it, and it was great because I really felt like appreciated and already welcomed to the Chakra UI community. So I was hyped and I had to try to build more things with Chakra UI. I wrote my first blog about color palette switching and started building my own personal websites with Chakra UI and Nuxt, this one, which is still a work in progress. I know. But during development, I had some difficulties understanding the docs of Chakra UI on how to use icons with Chakra UI and Nuxt. But once I managed to get the icons working on my own project, I created my first PR to Chakra UI, updating or trying to update the documentation. And yeah, look at that, it got accepted and Jonathan added me as a contributor to Chakra UI. Can I say that from this point on I am a contributor to Chakra UI Vue? Let's rewind a little bit. Because do you remember this tweet? This is the first one that I made about Chakra. Well, I think that this is my first contribution to Chakra UI Vue. Because there is so much more than just contributing code PRs to an open source project. So I'm sure, 100% sure, that everyone here that's listening to my talk is amazing and has already contributed to an open source project. Because you must have sent a tweet or made a blog post or even just talked about a project that you really liked with your friends or colleagues. So that's already contributing to it. The only thing that I would not consider a real contribution is or are amazing pull requests like this, the famous October ones. During the meetup in Dubai, I asked all the other core members why they work or what got them into working in open source. One of the main things that came out of this was that there is a ton to learn in open source. For example, before I joined the core team, I had no real experience with TypeScript or working on a component library. So it was a perfect opportunity to learn this. It's a perfect opportunity to learn something new and build in public. Because it's not only fun, but you have so many people that will help you. Another thing was that all the cool people are in open source, which is true. Just take a look at the Vue community, come on. So yeah, it also makes networking easier. I worked with people I never thought I would work with, and I met people I never thought I would meet, just because of open source. So that's amazing. So many opportunities are also created by open source projects. Not only meeting cool people, but also for me, for example, I think it helped me land this talk. And of course, the trip to Dubai. But it might also help getting an awesome job or build something really loved by the community, which turns out like an awesome framework like Vue.js. And a nice side effect is that you could make some money from these projects. Another thing that was mentioned is the work model. It looks and sounds better than the traditional 9-to-5 one, because everyone is equal, everyone is their own boss, and everyone spends time when they want to spend time on open source. For example, it's not because Jonathan started with the Vue version of Chakra.ui that he has all the say in it. Because every voice is heard, every pull request is checked, and anyone can bring value, no matter how much knowledge they have. And the last thing on my list is that it's something that's in line with the opportunities, because contributing to open source helps to build your own personal branding, and this will lead to more opportunities, more connections, and yeah, more fun. So why not? Well, I think there is no real reason why not just do it. Because yeah, I know it looks scary at first, and I do have to admit that before starting as a core member, I felt like I did not have the required knowledge. But it turns out it was absolutely no problem. So in February 2021, a tweet was sent out by Jonathan that he was looking for help with the documentation of the upcoming Vue 1 version of Chakra.ui Vue. And I got tagged in it by Alex, who is one of the great members of the Worldview meetup group. And I already was in connection with Jonathan, so I took my chance and went for it. I got a chat with Jonathan, and he was super nice and made sure that I didn't have anything to worry about, like the required knowledge or something. Because yeah, he said like, it may seem intimidating, but yeah, you could start small and learn on the way. That's what he also did by building Chakra.ui Vue. So I was inspired and really on ease. So at that moment I knew that I could do it, and I could just count on him and count on the whole community to help me out. Because yeah, we are a community. So I took the chance, and yeah, now we're here. Like I said before, it's not all about codes. There are so many aspects that need love in an open source project. Segun, who is the creator of the Chakra.ui React version, posted a call for collaborators some time ago. And if we quickly scan through it, you can see that they could use help with the documentation, like translations into new languages, for example, or with deferral and community building, like in the Discord, with questions, etc. Or with setting up some side projects, like the Chakra.ui Playground. And yes, some core development, or DevOps even. So yeah, you don't have to wait for a call like this, because you can start now, you can start small, and you will learn on the way. Everybody can. And yeah, this will help to get yourself noticed into the community, and it will build a network, and you will find great opportunities, and you will have a great time. I may have gotten you all warm for contributing to an open source project that you like. So here are a few tips that I put together, not in real order or something, but I think the easiest thing to get involved is getting involved in the community. Maybe start with a small project like I did with Chakra.ui Vue. It's not that big, not yet. Let's hope we can build it bigger. But yeah, you can start with saying hi in the Discord, for example, and help other members with questions they have about the open source software. But You can also start with creating a blog post on how you use that piece of software in a personal project. It's like building in public. So another thing is it's always great to start reading the documentation of open source projects, because many will have a guide on how to contribute to this project. For example, Checker.ui View has a small one, but there is also things like general guides, like the second link, for example. I just have general information how to contribute and in what levels, etc. It's really cool. So the next thing, open source maintainers do love getting help building their projects, and many will have like issues or features in their GitHub that has the tag good for beginners. And yeah, you should be able to find them in their GitHub repo, and maybe those are great to start with. Another tip that I have is that you should not be afraid to ask questions and reach out in public. Why in public? Because you might not be the only one with that question. And yeah, it may help others because they don't dare to ask it yet, or they will have that same question a few days later, for example. And last but not least, enjoy your journey in the open source world. I mean, yeah, it's a great time. So, I'm Sybren, and this was my talk about contributing to open source. I do hope you got inspired to take a look into contributing to a project that you really like. And yeah, if you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Twitter or on Checker.ui Discord under the tag @Scarbeck. Thanks for your time, and remember, you can do it, because it doesn't require geniuses, it requires passionate people. Cheers.
All right. That was inspiring, Sebrin.
All right.
How are you doing? Welcome to the Vue Storefront Hackathon Flash Talks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm good. And yeah, it's cool. The Flash Talks Hackathon.
Yes, it's we want to not just people be coding in their places and then at the end like submit, but have some events in between to share some knowledge like this one, or share some stories, etc., to keep it a little bit more interactive. And yeah, I really hope people like it. People that are watching it like it. And yeah, so everyone who watches this, if you have questions or comments for Sebrin, just don't be shy to put them in the comment section. All right. So yeah, open source contributions. So I think the most how do you say, the biggest barrier that people have to enter open source is the fear of being judged, right? Because it's like, oh, what if my code isn't perfect? What if I make a mistake in, I don't know, the formatting of the file? It's tabs, not spaces, or spaces, not tabs, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What would you suggest someone that suffers from this fear of not being good enough, of making mistakes? Like, what could you suggest them to, how to overcome that kind of
well, how to overcome it? It's something I struggled and still struggle with a lot. But I just like say, just do it. Like in the beginning, before I joined Checker.ui core team, Jonathan, who started with the Vue part of Checker.ui, we had a talk about it, and he said like, yeah, but you don't have to worry about it. The community, it's always a friendly community. It's I don't know, it's not like Twitter. You don't get like judged badly or something, because everyone is there to learn and to teach people. So I think that when you make like a small pull request with code that maybe isn't looking the best, someone will comment on it, and it's like feedback, and just use the feedback. Don't be afraid to get feedback. That's the way you will learn the fastest, I think.
Because they will say things and tips that you can use and improve the feedback, and then once it's good enough, it will be merged. So I know it's scary, but it's just like just start doing it, and you will learn on the way. But yeah, for me it was also like I started in Chakra Y, and I feel like there I had the I had the luck that Jonathan is really a chill dude, and I feel like the community was really chill. So that was maybe a good first step to find the community. Just join a Discord or something and find the community and see how the community is for that project, and it may help with making the step easier. But then again, it's just like pretty just do it. Read the documentation and just do it. It's the best way to get there.
Yeah, that's great advice. Just start and everything will fall into place, like with most things. We have a question from Tim. Benniks, how much time does it take a week generally? I suppose he means being part of Chakra UI view.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say because we're all doing this of the Vue team that I know. We're all doing this in our part-time, in our free time after a 9 to 5, 9 to 5 jobs. So it really depends on how much time everyone has in their free time. Some weeks people have more time in the weekends, for example, or not. We do have like a meeting every 2 weeks, and that will take like an hour or two. But once you get into there, you can easily plan it. So that's like the minimal. I say I spend time on it. But some days I have like 2-3 hours in the evening to spend on it. It really depends on how much free time I have, and I think it's the same for each team member of Chakra Y View. It's it maybe like the sad part about it that we all have to do it in our free time because progress takes much longer this way. But yeah.
All right. I have a question, another question myself. Like you probably made a lot of contributions to Chakra UI View and maybe other projects, but is there one contribution in particular that you're super proud of, or that you think that made the biggest impact? Something that you can think of?
Well, I think it will be my first pull request for Chakra UI View. Because it was my first step, and it was the first step to get where I am now. So, and it was a super easy, super small change. It was just like I said in the talk, I was just trying out Chakra UI and found, oh, this is missing in the documentation, and I made the pull request because from then on, I got more like what's the word? The confidence to make pull requests. Also on other projects, before I thought, changing or adding this to the documentation, for me it would be easier, but maybe it's stupid. But now I'm just like, hey, I put in the pull request and I will see. So I think that was one of the most important pull requests or contributions I've done so far. For personally, but then maybe on the project aspects, I would think like the work I'm doing right now on the documentation of the new version of Chakra UI View, because documentation will be very important, and it's also very interesting to do and work on it, because it's not just typing the docs itself, the text itself, but we are like building MDX stuff in there, and yeah, a bunch of stuff. It's not just typing the documentation. So yeah, really cool that we're getting there too.
All right, cool. Let's see if someone else has a comment in the comment section. For the moment, it doesn't look like it. Yeah, if not, we are anyways at our time mark of 1 hour for today. Do you have something maybe that's coming up you want to talk about, open source wise, or?
Let's see. Well, of course, we are building the V1 version of CheckerUI View, which will be compatible with Vue 3. So I think that's gonna be super awesome when we get there. And another thing is with Bellevue, you will know it. We will soon have a meetup in Belgium. So if you're interested in that and you're from Belgium or something, or close by, yeah, keep an eye on our socials.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm.
Awesome.
I don't know if people know in the chat. I recently joined the organizing team of Bellevue, the Belgian chapter of Vue.js, and yeah, we are organizing a meetup there. And yeah, if anyone is interested to join, anyone that's around there, just shoot me a message, and when we have the date and the place, I will let you know. All right, there are no more questions, so I would say thank you very much, Sybren, for your talk and for your some more. Tim is not that close by, but he would love to participate. Yeah, anyone is of course welcome to participate. Let's see what we can do, Tim, to get you there. All right, thank you a lot, Sybren, for your talk and also your answers to our questions. And of course, also thank you for the audience. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for being part of this hackathon. And I will see you probably in the Discord or in the social media. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye, Sybren.
All right. Bye-bye.